Welcome back to Brevity Box. I'm Charlie. Over there in the adult Captain America onesie is my buddy and co-host Brando.
Actually,
Brando?
we're with Iron Man today.
Oh, sorry. I get him confused sometimes. Before we get going, I wanted to address something. Do you remember why we called this thing Brevity Box again? Oh, wait, I remember. It's because I suck at brevity and naming things. Am I
And
missing
you
something
like
there?
getting on a soapbox.
And I like getting on a soapbox, right? What we do here is we're interested in people that are around us all the time, and we don't often get a chance to see how full of experience and knowledge and survival skills for getting through life some of those people are. So we want to find them and help tell their stories. And when we're not doing that, we're going to focus on a topic or a premise and try to cram all that conversation into a nice little box, a brevity box. Yeah, smooth, right? Pretty slick. Yep. So we're going to kind of go that direction today. Today, we're not going to be focused on a single guest. Instead, we're going to be hosting a panel of guests for today's topics. Full disclosure, today's show is going to involve a good amount of politically oriented conversation, but we're going to try to have some fun with it, and we'll see how it goes. So, on to the panel. We are joined today by the host of the Ruminations from the Red Room podcast, producer and editor at large, Mitch Proctor. Mitch, hello.
Good afternoon, evening, I guess, what it is now, right? Good evening.
Time has no meaning anymore, right,
Not a
Brando?
bit.
Time is a flat circle.
That's right. We are also joined today by knife collector, personal trainer, backyard arsonist, and future host of On the Human Experiment podcast, and inventor of the White Snake fan club, Mike Snake. Here's, I wanted to say, Mike asked me to do a custom introduction for him. So here is Mike again on his own. Hey, Mike.
Wow. Well, that's quite the introduction. I don't know if I can live up to that.
Sorry, Mike. Brando was talking over you.
I know,
What did you say, man?
way to go. I just want to say thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, it's nice. I hope I got those chords right. I can't call myself a true fan, but I like the song. So if I think that fit, right? That fits your
It'll work.
request.
It'll work. It's passable.
Well, appreciate you being here. If we're lucky, we're also going to be joined by a friend of the show and software engineer Doyle Timberlake, and maybe he'll get here, maybe he won't. We'll see. Hey, how's everybody doing? Everybody holding up okay considering everything?
Doing well.
All things considered, yeah. I'm glad I don't live in a state capital right now.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get to some part of that. Mitch, you doing okay? You holding up? I know you're always busy.
Yeah, doing well. Thanks.
Cool. Well, so I explained to you guys a little before we started recording. Today's show is going to be an open discussion. We're going to go segment by segment. Going to try to keep those segments shorter, maybe 10 minutes or so where we need it, and maybe with some option to extend. I'm going to present a premise or concept to you and try to get your reaction to it. We're going to start by getting some basics though. We're going to go one by one. How much time would you guys say individually that you spend reading or watching news or content involving politics? And we'll start with Mike. How much time would you say a day?
So I don't know if I'd break it down per day, but I'd say in a given week, I'm probably somewhere around 4, maybe 5 hours.
4 or 5 hours, Mitch?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of time to
sorry.
to read a lot, but I try and keep up.
And do you say, would you read more, watch more? What's your preference?
My preference is actually to read articles.
Read articles. Any particular one you're a fan of? Site you're a fan of? Newspaper you're a fan
I
of?
kind of get them from all over. I check
Okay.
Politico, I check the Washington Post, New York Times. I do like Al Jazeera Network. There's a couple others that I check as well.
Okay. So that gives me an idea. Mitch, how about you? How much time do you
I just want
think?
to interrupt and say that it's really refreshing to hear someone doing the old-fashioned thing of rating their news and using that weird thing they taught us in school called critical thought.
Oh,
It's
well,
refreshing.
it's worth praise for sure.
Very much.
Mitch, how much time would you say you put in the news a week?
In the last 2 years, it's definitely changed. I would say probably an hour a day.
Hour a day, so 7 hours a week. About near Mike. Would you say you read as well, or do you consume your news with video or news networks?
No, I prefer to read. I don't have time for videos. I feel
Okay.
like I can't trust what the video is going to present me. Whereas where if I'm reading an article, I can usually discern a little bit more quickly what it's going to be presenting. I don't know. I don't like videos. So if you're going to send me a link, don't
Fair.
send me a link to a video because I won't watch it.
I'm not. I'm not.
I'm not watching
Uh,
it.
I'm not sending you a link. And then of course, Brando. How much time would you say you put into news a week?
2 to 3 hours a day. But I do have a job that allows me to listen to podcasts all day long, so that does kind of help.
Yeah, I think I think I'm right there with you in terms of how much time I put into it. And would you say similar answer to what we've heard from Mike? I'd say several different providers, sources
Yeah,
for
I
news.
tend to try and read my news. I try and stay as center as possible, so I get most of my news from the Associated Press, Reuters, NPR, The Hill, maybe occasionally jump over to what my father calls the Communist News Network, and Politico every
MSNBC?
now and then.
Right. Okay. So
I also jump over to Fox News and Infowars when I want to laugh.
well, so well, that's actually an interesting point because that's my next question. Do any of the three of you put any time into opposition, like research in terms of what you don't agree with? Do you pursue articles or perspective from news sources that you just know you're not going to agree with?
Yes.
Mike,
Well, go
Mitch,
ahead,
yeah,
Michael.
please.
No, please.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'd call it like opposition news, but I find myself doing what I kind of think is like going down the rabbit hole. I'll read an article, they'll mention something, and I want to look into that, so I go and look into that, and then that next article I find will lead to something else that I'll kind of look into that, and I'll just keep going from article to article to article, and so I might be like 5 articles away from the original one, and I'll have to go back to the original to finish up.
Okay. Okay, I get that.
We call
Mitch, what
that
do you
game 6 Degrees of Mitch McConnell.
say? You were saying, Mitch?
Yeah, I look at anything that I can get my hands on.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in then. It sounds like you guys are pretty informed. You're well read. You'll have a good, well, deeply rooted opinions. So let's get started. We're just over a week out from when Duck Dynasty attempted a coup in the Capitol. The president has been impeached a second time for inciting this action, and a first for an American president. And Twitter put the orange one in a timeout. So here is my starting question, and it has to do with the term going postal. Now, we've said going postal since we were kids. For those of you who don't know, going postal is a American phrase referring to becoming extremely and uncontrollably angry, often to the point of violence, and usually this manifesting in a workplace environment. And it's derived from a series of incidents in 1986, approximately, involving the U.S. Postal Service, where workers went postal and attacked those people around them, often involving police, etc. So my question is the rushing the Capitol, are they storming the Capitol, quote unquote, becoming the new going postal? And what are we going to call it going forward? Like, what are we going to call that event? Those are my two questions. Funny part, is storming the Capitol the new going postal? Like when somebody's losing their shit in front of you at the store, in the grocery store, are you going to turn to the people around you and say, shit, this psycho looks like they're about to storm the Capitol, just to give everybody around you a forewarning? And in a serious note, because we're at this pinnacle point in history, what are you guys going to look back and reference January 6th as? Are we going to call it the Red Hat Rebellion? Are we going to call it the Q
Ooh,
coup for cuckoo poofs?
ooh, that's good.
Are we, what, that's my first premise. What's your thoughts?
Let's
Anybody can
be
jump in.
honest. I'm gonna jump in here. I think storming the Capitol is good. I don't refer to them. I mean, I tend to call them Al Qaeda, the jihadists, Yokul Haram. I got a lot of good names for those people. If it's just a single person, I'm gonna keep going with the climb the clock tower reference. But yeah, I mean, storming the Capitol. That's what a group of crazy people is probably going to be referred to from here on out.
I
See, I
liked
think
Q for Cuckoo Poos personally. I just like the alliteration of it.
so. Storming the Capitol, I mean, that kind of refers to a whole group of people, right? Like going postal was generally just one person.
Well, that's what I'm saying is maybe storming the Capitol is now the new statement for a mental state, right? Like when a
Right.
person reaches going postal, that's
But
a 20th century reference. We have a
right.
21st century reference now,
But couldn't
and
you
it's
couldn't you
storming
say
the
that
Capitol.
like storming the Capitol is kind of the culmination of everything leading up to this? I mean, we saw riots in 2020. They had nothing to do with the election, and they were actually usually from people on the left. So I mean, if you want to start throwing hay and saying that like this is representative of anybody else, maybe we should come up with maybe going Antifa.
I mean, again, because this really is going to be the thing that I think most definitively describes this presidency in the beginning of the year. And I get where you're trying to draw a parallel between them, but the main difference is one of them is a coup and the others aren't. And because of that, it's just my way of trying to make a reference to the fact that we're going to have to find a way to make light of this at some point, and also a way to identify it clearly. So I am having a little fun by referring to it as Duck Dynasty, or uh saying that maybe people are, I mean, I'm already starting to say it to family members that are going out of their mind. I'm like, listen, don't lose your shit and storm the Capitol for me, okay? And the
Nice.
funny thing is even if they, whatever side they're on, they get it and
Right.
everybody agrees on it, right? I think it's easier to hit it at first with some humor, and then we can kind of talk about our thoughts on it. Like Brando said, he had Y'all Qaeda is pretty funny. Yeah, I like that a lot, especially because I'm in the South. But it's a serious moment, and it gives
Right.
us a platform.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk humor, I think the funniest part from the whole thing has got to be the people that are just like Buffalo. I don't understand that
From
whatsoever.
Arizona,
Yeah, sadly
Yeah.
enough.
the Q shaman,
Uh,
who was going on
but
a hunger strike because he couldn't get his organic food in prison.
thank you for mentioning that. Thank you for mentioning that. That to me is the snowflakiest thing of snowflakes. Your hunger strike is driven by the fact that prison food isn't organic. Hmm. Are these free range eggs? Oh, I can't eat that. I can't eat that.
Well, they're free range prisoners, so it shouldn't matter,
Well, not under sedition, right? We don't even know.
right?
All right. Well, it doesn't sound like anybody else have anything to add about the coup, how they felt about it. Do you find any humor, not find any humor in it?
Well, I mean, as far as like how I felt about it, I was watching the whole thing, heard about it at work, started looking up articles and trying to see what I could find online and everything. Um, so of course, my first thought was, well, that's a treasonous act.
Hmm.
And then my second thought was, well, if these people truly believe that the election was stolen, then is it a treasonous act or is it a patriotic act?
Well, it
Treason.
does. But look, this is a interesting concept. Like what I wanted to ask is,
Now you start getting into the discussion of like subjective reality. What does it matter
yes.
what someone believes? Then I mean, if I just I never mind.
Man, Joseph
No, no,
Goebbels would
no,
be
no.
real
Please,
proud of this
please.
big lie.
This is gonna be a perfect. Please finish what you're saying, Mitch.
That's all. I'm just saying that's interesting to comprehend, interesting to think about.
Well, your words actually help me move on to my next I thought here. And that is this segment I'm going to call the cult of Trump and QAnon. And the reason is I think it's fair to refer to the group that follows QAnon. They're in a cult, right? And it's hard not to think of if who is, when you're trying to dole out blame and you have a lot of people there brandished with simultaneously with Trump and Q and QAnon conspiracy. For those of you who don't know what QAnon is, I'd say look it up. It's everywhere right now, and definitely played a role in motivating the Red Hats to storm the Senate while in session, which is important to note, it wasn't an empty building. It could have become a lot worse. It could have become anything from a hostage situation to really. That's why it's being referred to as a coup. It's a, the government was in one place at one time and entirely under threat. So this got me thinking about cults in general and how we sort of look back at cults. So easy references here are the Branch Davidians in Waco under David Koresh, ended with a blaze and burning down most of the compound and most of the followers with it, right? Or Jim Jones and Jonestown, where we get the phrase "drink the Kool-Aid," where this spiritual cult leader led a large group of people to Guyana and organized and executed a mass suicide. Again, cult followers going where their leaders are directing them. And in both of those cases, we sort of don't look back in history and blame the members. Not saying we shouldn't, but we don't, right? You don't go back with a lot of thought and start wondering why the people got involved in the first place. Often we place blame on their leaders for the awful outcomes. And we're looking at this now, and these people who are following Q, also deeply involved in following Trump's words and his allusions to what he would want done. Those most deeply in the Kool-Aid, as it were. Um, what would you say is more to blame? Do you blame between QAnon and Trump? I think we all agree this is a sort of got these cultish undertones, overtones. I don't even know what you would say it, right? Would you blame Q, that conspiracy, or do you place it all on the political Jim Jones of Donald Trump?
I don't even think it's either one of those. I think it's just showing that we need to invest more money in education. Because I don't know many smart people that fall for the Q. I don't know
Well,
many
I don't know.
people
I
that
don't
could
know
put
enough
the.
people to say that. I mean, me personally, I don't know. I know of the conspiracies. I know that because, like, if people are like us and they're well read and they're, I mean, really vigorously trying to find out not just looking for confirmation bias, right?
Well,
They're really trying to challenge themselves.
I think I would have to disagree with Brando in that I don't believe it's a good idea to lump everybody into the same category and call them dumb. I mean, there's a
Gullible would have been a
fringe
better word. I apologize.
there's a fringe group within a group that are more extreme and are probably the ones, causing the problems. Just as I was talking about, like, with there being riots in 2020 for the Black Lives Matter, I believe the majority of the people in those instances are out there for a good reason, for a good cause, for something they believe in. And then there's the fringe, those extremists who are there specifically trying to cause problems. And I think that's probably what happened in this instance. I don't believe that everybody who was there with the intent to cause damage or cause harm, but they did want to be heard. And I don't necessarily think that they're ignorant, but I think that if they only get their information from one source, then they're extremely limited in their views.
And
So
I want to be real specific on something. The people that went there just to protest, stayed outside with their signs and their flag that around their necks, cool. You do you. That is your right. But man, the ones that actually started climbing the steps and forced their way into the building, that's a whole different thing.
this is kind of what I'm getting at with the references to the cult, right? Like if you use Jonestown as an example, it starts to kind of like with if you're going with what Mike is saying, which I find myself agreeing with to some extent, you start saying it like I don't like I blame the people who just drank the Kool-Aid the least, but I blame the people that made the Kool-Aid a little more, and then I blame Jim Jones a lot more, right? And it's has these tiers of blame because I mean, I think we've made reference to this before that I think some of us, maybe all of us, are related to people who on all many other topics we might refer to as good, or family or friendly or friends. And it's hard not to start feeling like, you ask the question, is this is this little more than an egotistical salesman and his cronies hijacking some amount of otherwise good people for their political ambitions? Or is it, like Brando was saying, rooted in education? Is it rooted in people's gullibility and desire for confirmation bias? I mean, what are your do you I mean, because it sounds like Mike feels like there's an element of good people out there, and I tend to agree. But it's kind of where I started with the discussion is, if you have somebody who's on that side of the political spectrum, who maybe only reads news, or maybe doesn't read news, maybe only watches news once a week, and that once a week is just filling his head with the same information over and over, it becomes a challenge to know how much you like. What am I upset with that person about? Mostly that they're uninformed, which would lead to them being more gullible, and so on and so forth. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely. That does sound pretty agreeable.
Well, again, I just want to go back real quick because one of the things you asked earlier was, do we lay blame squarely at the feet of the president? And there again, I think I don't necessarily know that his intent was to incite a riot of that magnitude. I believe that he, yes, definitely wanted people to go and protest at the Capitol and stand outside and make noise and try and voice their displeasure. I don't know that his intent was for the worst to happen, which is what we saw happen on the 6th.
Or is it possible that Michael Cohen was right about him when he testified in front of Congress, saying he pulls that Tony Soprano says things without saying things mobster speaking, maybe knew what he was kind of doing.
Well, there's always that scenario as well, that maybe he knew what he was doing, or maybe he knew just what he could say to set the fire to the tinder, as it were. Um, but
I've
there
been on
again,
Tinder, and it's really not all that.
Yeah, Tinder does run upset.
well, and then maybe we really should set fire to it. Uh, but there again, I think it's the fringe, right? It's those extremists, the ones who perhaps are susceptible to being part of a cult, or sharing that cult mentality, um, who are the ones that listened and understood, if that were the case, what the message was.
Well, so Mike, the only thing I would kind of throw in there is, I see what you're going for. My contention in that is, if we take the rally at the point in time where, let's just take Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump Jr. Let's take the three of them as a set of speakers speaking at the same rally consecutively. And, to your point, I would agree with you. I think that Trump knows what he's doing. He knows that political speech is one of the most protected forms of speech, and he knows how to allude without saying directly. And he leaves the saying of directly to the people that are around him. So even in that same moment, you've got his son and his very, very clear representative saying all the words that maybe that he's smart enough not to say,
Demand
like
trial by combat.
trial by combat. You got to fight if you want this, or you're going to lose everything. And of course, the culpability based on the singular words of the man at the moment, that's one way. The fact that he doesn't speak against what the people representing him are saying, that's another level of that culpability. And then I think the third part of it really has to do with the fact that it was so widely pumped and rallied from November 4th, all the way through the stoking and antagonizing of those, fears, or that conception on the other side. And then, culminating in the fact that it was the campaign that really adopted this "let's rally in Washington on January 6th," which is not a really common event. And then for them to go on there and push even further, you know and then I think the biggest one is that there was no action to stop it. And we can talk about what there's allegedly and this and that, but just generally speaking, the president did not come out and verbally make a statement for any time during this crisis when basically the leaders of the United States government are trapped in a building with an angry mob outside.
There's like what 11 bodies short of the State of the Union.
Yeah, so it's I mean clearly at best he is the boy who cried wolf so hard and now is going to play like he didn't know he didn't know he was going to spill the milk, but ultimately I think it's difficult not to place that blame. The motivation, like you said, I think there are bad actors, but there's
Well,
a
I think
large
it's
group of people that are being told to be angry and they're not being leveled with. Like those people are not
And
being
also, when you spill the milk, you don't look at the puddle and say, "We love you, puddle. You're very special."
yeah, true.
right.
He did say that afterwards. He
That
said all
was,
those people who
mm,
stormed the Capitol are very special and we love them.
hmm
But so this is my last question dealing with that particular event. Then do you think? And I would like an answer from everybody on this one, just to see if it's a yes or no. Do you think that everybody um, is capable of this sort of berserker mode? I mean, are I guess the main question therein is: are we as individuals only as good as our aspirations of who we aim to be? Like at our core, are we still all these cavemen? And sometimes we have that inside of us to be stoked out. Do you think that's in every person?
I think we are all capable of that to a degree. And, you know, fortunately for most of us, we'll never know. Like, we're never going to get to that point. But the one thing I always think about, and especially in a situation like this, is, and I'm fairly certain I've mentioned it to you before, Charlie, is Tommy Lee Jones in the movie Men in Black talking to Will Smith. And, Will Smith is talking to him about the fact that they're aliens on Earth. And he says, why don't you let people know they can handle it? And, they're smart. And Tommy Lee Jones says, no, a person is smart. People as a group are dumb and
hmm
fearful. And I think we've seen an example of that.
Fair answer. Mitch, Brando?
there was a very smart person, maybe a philosopher. I think Mike can probably correct me on this. That once said something along the lines of, pretty much any American is about 9 meals away from going from being okay with total anarchy, or something along those lines. I don't really recall who it was or how it went, but I think under the right circumstances, with the right catalyst, pretty much possibly most people could be driven mad and do something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm touching on. Is just it made me wonder if um, you know, if I had that, if everybody had that in them, just the circumstances or maybe the leadership that you were hearing, could pull that out of you. I wasn't sure. I needed to hear from other people.
Look, all I
Uh,
know is when Brugger's Bagels takes away the sriracha honey cream cheese, I'm going to get pretty close to snapping.
you're gonna raid the Capitol. Um,
The Brugger's capital, maybe.
Mitch, what are your thoughts on it, man? Do you think this is all? Do you think this everybody has this inside of them, or do you think that's
Well, how
a unique?
literally am I supposed to take you? Because that's a pretty finite. It's a very d- definite usage. Everyone, no, everyone is not capable of this. Everyone is not. Some people just aren't. Some people backed into a corner will crumble and break apart and will not be able
Mm,
to stand and fight. That's just the fact of the matter. Seen it. But if you're talking about are most people, that's a different thing. Most people are capable of this and driven to a certain point would react in such a way. However, it's incumbent upon us as individuals, as a creature on this earth that has intelligence that, to our knowledge, is unmatched, uh, to rise above those primal instincts and be better than that. So the question is: everybody capable? No. Are most people? Yes. Should they? We can do better. That's how I see it.
So then that is that answer to my last question is, are we only as good as the aspirations of who we aim to be? That you'd say yes, because I'd say yes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Man, we need that Bill and Ted song to unite the world right now more than ever.
Absolutely, do we need that? We do. All right. So moving on, we're going to try to have a little bit lighter here. Clearly, with everything going on and the surprise distancing of some Republicans, namely McConnell, from Trump, you know, clearly the GOP is going to be going through an identity crisis over the next couple of years with, you know, God Emperor Cheeto von Fuckface as the leader of the fractured party.
Real
So
quick, I want to touch on the God Emperor name because I know a lot of people call him that unironically because of the Warhammer 40K God Emperor of Man. But I always imagined like a really incompetent Duke Leto from God Emperor of Doom.
I just think Biff Tannen too. I'll always think Biff Tannen. But so let's name the party real quick. We don't even have to have a discussion. What's the name of Trump's fractured party?
Oh, it's going to be the Freedom Party, I guarantee it.
That's a serious jab. Okay. Freedom Party. Mike,
It'll be
thoughts?
quite the ironic name, but that's what I'm pretty sure that's what they'll call themselves.
I honestly am not sure what they would call themselves.
You only have one answer. Mike,
Dang.
sorry.
Yeah, you know what though? I'm gonna steal Brando's. He's probably right. The Patriot Party, because or the We Will Not Be Silenced Party,
The We Will Not Be Silenced part. That's too many
or
words.
maybe the Silent but Deadly Party.
That's
Well, they ain't
scary
silent.
and also funny. You found the most inappropriate and awkward thing to say. We don't want the D part. I think MAGA party is pretty obvious. Red Hat party is going to hear about it, I'm sure. What are you thinking, Mitch? What's the
No,
name of it?
I'm with them, and I don't care.
I don't care.
You think Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert could maybe split off to a fourth one, the Q Party?
Dude, come on. Oh my god. I'm tired.
Sorry,
I'm
Mitch.
tired. Oh my god.
Oh, boy.
You all right, man?
To whom are you addressing that? Me?
You, yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I don't know what they're gonna call themselves, and I don't care. I'm with Mike. You have to start wondering, like, if these people, if there's a faction of folks who truly believe, and I mean, I think that maybe right off at the beginning of the conversation, maybe I wasn't clear, or I didn't get a chance to express it to him, but I understand what you're saying, that some of these people genuinely believe that they're acting in a patriotic way. So what they end up calling themselves, though, I mean, delusional as they may be, doesn't really matter to me. I don't know what to say to that. I can't reason with lunacy. So, and there's someone who just was recently arrested, 53-year-old CEO guy, killed himself in prison, who was arrested on these seditious, acts for breaching the Capitol, and he killed himself. And I was talking to another friend of mine, and anyone who kills themselves, it's pretty well generally accepted in mental health circles that there's something wrong already. So this is the type of state that we're probably dealing with most of these folks, the ones who truly believe, the ones who truly drink the Kool-Aid. So what's my end answer there? I don't know. The crack party. I don't know.
Well, no, look, I think that's sort of in part
So
what
yeah,
I am.
I don't blame them necessarily, because they can you blame someone who can't think for themselves? I don't know. Can you blame someone who refuses to educate themselves? Kind of, in that way, yeah, if that's what it is. Sorry, Charlie. I didn't mean to. You said we're not going to get dark, but
Mitch, I
so
unironically want to say this. This is why I love you, and I'm glad you're here.
I'm good. I'm good, man. Yeah, what are you going to call him? What's a funnier name? The Cheeto Party? Is that what you're saying, Charlie?
No, no,
Oh,
no. Look,
let's
to
come up
be
with a funny one. Oh
no.
God.
To be frank, man, the whole point was for me to use the time limit and moving from these
Yeah.
ridiculous questions to try to keep us from going too deep, because I expected that we would go there.
Man, I'm
And
doing my best
honestly,
not to. You know, I want to try
no,
to
no, no, no. I
that.
want you to be honest. In fact, everything that I was hoping that you would speak up to what you believe, and I think that about everybody. Mike, of course, didn't hesitate to be the devil's advocate in some fashion. I expected that, and I want that, and I want that to be fodder for discussion. I know we're all having our reactions to it and are exhausted and surprised
Oh, I'm
and
not surprised. Let us
well, I
be
think
crystal clear, not surprised. Not
I think
surprised.
I'd say this much: surprised in terms of
Mhm.
we're all grown men. If you would have told us this was happening in our lifetimes when we were, in our 20s, I don't think that we would have expected that. Maybe some of us would have thought it was possible, but not in the way that it's manifested. I certainly don't mean surprised in the last year,
Hmm.
but I mean in terms of like if you were to told me in 2012 when Barack Obama got reelected that in 4 years Trump would be president and in 8 years there'd be a raid on the Capitol, I'd be like, nah, I wouldn't have gone all the way for that. I think the bigger time frames I look back, the more I find it surprising. And I just I want people to hear us talking about this stuff, but not taking that emotion that you're exemplifying there and for an hour, but
Sure.
like for 5 minutes, totally cool. Exactly what we need. And I want it to be a venting session. I'm just trying to put balloons of helium on the ends of these things. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
I
So
think, I think back in 2012, we still had a good amount of hand kill Republicans versus the Dale Gribble Republicans we have now.
yeah, it's definitely a gribble of a good time in the annals of Trump supportism. So moving on, everything's going exactly how we needed to. So look, I've had someone in mind for a while now who may be solely to blame, and his work's been reoccurring and rattling around in my brain for a while now. Uh, I really have a hard time not putting the entire blame of the last 4 years squarely on Kevin Spacey. And I want to make my case. Okay. Okay.
I gotta hear
I'm,
this.
I'm gonna
I
I'm
gotta
gonna
hear
make
this.
my case and I need to get your reactions to them. Okay. But you're gonna have to roll with me here. So I'm gonna use three roles that this monster has played that has clearly influenced the direction of our country. Okay.
Okay,
And
Charlie,
I think
show us what's in the box.
I'm just saying, look, first is easy, low hanging fruit. I encourage everybody to go and watch it. Um, and that's House of Cards, right? I mean, President Underwood is a case study in how to be a piece of shit and president. And it often seems fictitious. And like I thought it was unbelievable when it came out, but still entertaining. But and that was until Trump came into the scene and it seems like pretty obvious. I don't have to delve too hard. This kind of follows in that same logic of Brando and I have had a long running belief that one particular character of one very popular television show led to Barack Obama getting elected by the country, and that is Brando, please do the honors,
It'll be my first black president, David Palmer.
from the show.
Documentary
24.
24.
Recognized.
Look,
So
all I'm
as much
saying is there were no terror attacks on U.S. soil when that show was on the air. Okay.
as see, so I think we could say Kiefer Sutherland
Jack Bauer was
did.
original. My first gun was an HK.
All right, so easy enough. You get where I'm going. House of Cards, do your homework. That's an easy case study. But I think when I think of these people and a lot of the discussion that we've talking about, people who don't educate themselves, people who just are gullible, maybe. The second role that I think really starts to sink it in that Kevin Spacey is responsible, it's The Usual Suspects. All right. Now, for those of you who hadn't seen it, plot follows the interrogation of Roger Verbal Kent, a small time con man played by Kevin Spacey, who was one of only two survivors of a massacre and fire on a ship docked at the port of Los Angeles. And through flashback and narration, Kent tells the interrogator, one Detective Dave Couillon, played by Chaz Palminteri, a very convoluted story of events that led him and his criminal companions to the boat, and mysterious crime lord known as Kaiser Soze, who controlled and orchestrated everything. Now, this movie comes to mind because to me, it's the most closely aligned to the QAnon deep state narrative, where in this case, Spacey, as Verbal Kent, is both Trump and Q, telling his base, in this case, Detective Couillon, Chaz Palminteri, who, just like Trump's base, is very eager to get confirmation of their suspicions,
Here's
that they know
I gotta
exactly who's wrong.
interrupt you. I gotta interrupt you because
You can't do it yet. You got to let me finish this one part.
Okay.
By by famous criminal Dean Keaton, played by Gabriel Byrne. Couillon is so confident that he's correct in thinking that Keaton was Kaiser Soze that he doesn't realize that he's ripe to be told a story full of confirmation bias. Starting with Kent, Spacey reminiscing about the days when he was a barbershop quartet in Skokie, Illinois, and weaving through the convoluted tale involving the drug smuggling hitman Redfoot and the elusive lawyer to Mr. Soze, Kobayashi. It is only at the end of the film does Detective Couillon realize, after releasing Spacey's Kent, that who he's been speaking to during the whole interrogation. As he starts seeing the images and words that were all around the office, and as he's dropping his coffee cup to the ground to reveal the name Kobayashi on the bottom of the cup as it shatters when it hits the ground. He had been bamboozled, and by the time he realizes it, Kent, or better, Soze, is gone. Now, I can't help but think of this because to me, this is sort of the way the best allegory that I could think of to understand this ravenous group of people who already believes there's this Illuminati style group. They're already there thinking these conspiracy theories. And here comes Trump with this well woven, not for us, for them, because it's full of just confirming what their suspicions already are.
Here's again where I got to step in, and I got to say, in my opinion, I don't really think Donald Trump is in any way directly involved with the Q movement. I just think he's never really dismissed it or told people it's bullshit. Only time I remember him directly referencing it was during that town hall he had instead of a second debate when he told, I don't remember who it was that was busting his balls that night. It was something along the lines of, I don't know a whole lot about them, but they don't like pedophiles, and that's good. That's pretty much the only time I think he's ever really directly referenced them. So we might be doing a disservice if people think that we're trying to say that Donald Trump is directly tied to QAnon.
So they're never in the same room at the same time. Is that what you're saying?
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
I'm telling you, it fits in an eerie way to me. And the reason is because Couillon, Chaz's Palminteri's character, like that group, like these people that I live, many of my neighbors, they're so
Oh, you poor
convinced
bastard.
that things are so corrupt that these crazy conspiracy theories start to have traction. They're so eager, and even during the movie they even play it as part of the flashback where Couillon is telling him, tell me a story, convince me. He wants to be convinced. He believes it's Keaton the whole time, and the only thing that the person in front of him, who he just cannot believe that Spacey's character as the handicapped Verbal Kent would ever be in any way the person that could be leading this whole thing. So he's ripe to be told all of the lies. Redfoot, Kobayashi, Orca Fat, Barbershop Quartet in Skokie, Illinois. It isn't until that very last moment where he realizes it and it starts to come clear. And I think from what I'm seeing, and you guys can tell me if you disagree, it may be a small number, but there's a number of individuals that are realizing that they're coming to that late in the game, and they're probably going to be embarrassed, humiliated, rightfully so, probably. But there are a lot of people who are just coming clear on that. Do you think I'm off on
Y-
that?
You know, I don't know if you're off, Charlie, but I gotta say, you brought in the Illuminati. Seriously?
I said esque.
How's he brought in the Illuminati? I'm not following.
He found a way to work in the word Illuminati. I feel like he just always wants to talk about the Illuminati.
Well, it's only because of the use of the deep state. I mean, effectively, it's interchangeable at this point,
Right.
right? The fact that you have a large group of people believing there's this hidden
Oh, you've
organization.
definitely got a large
Bohemian Grove.
group of people who believe in the QAnon movement, and I think Brando's right. I don't know that Trump has ever really looked into it, but he's probably just found a way to kind of utilize it.
I think he
But
just in that
can I,
debate. Well,
can
in
I
that town
just
hall, he
guess?
just dismissed it.
Can I just guess, Charlie? Because I'm curious. Because you said you had three movies that
No, don't
demonstrate that
guess. Don't
Kevin
ruin my
Spacey
shit.
is
I'm gonna put my guess into the little chat thing we have here.
okay.
I know where you're going. So, Mitch, did you have any contributions for my usual suspects? Paver.
I love that movie.
It's
I love
such a good movie. I'm gonna
If
watch
you
it
have
tonight.
not seen this movie, you got to watch that movie again.
Well,
No,
you just ruined it for them, so they haven't seen them. They're just
spoiler
been
alert.
spoiled.
It's only been 20 years.
Doesn't matter.
All right. So,
Natalie's never seen that film.
Oh,
It's
Believe
so
it,
good.
and it's not her kind of thing. I don't know how to make her watch it, except that I'm just gonna have to make her watch it. But she may not enjoy it. But who wouldn't enjoy that movie? I don't know.
it's such
at the
classic.
very least, it is an acting tour de force.
Yeah, it's
You know what,
spectacular.
Mitch? I don't think Amanda's ever seen it either, and I have that and Snatch are two movies I want her to watch.
Good ones.
Maybe
Good
okay,
one.
Mike. What we do? Let's watch them together. Let's synchro watch them,
Okay.
and we'll live text each other. Like you and Amanda watch. We'll watch
Sounds good to me, dude. I'm down.
Usual Suspects. We count down 3, 2, 1. Start at the same time, and we'll all watch together.
All right. So then
Blissful.
let me just move on to the third leg of my convincing argument for why Kevin Spacey is to blame. And this is easy and obvious, and I know everybody already knows it. So anybody want to just say what it is right now?
Swimming with sharks.
John
How
Doe from Seven.
Boy, oh boy, Brando, there's a reason you're my co-host. There's a reason.
Mhm.
There's many reasons, actually.
No,
But
swimming with sharks.
So maybe 7 or not so much, you can tell me. I mean, I've made this reference before, but this is pretty easy, right? I'm a fan of everything about the movie 7.
Well, we're going to have a podcast about this with ruminations from Red Rum in the near future, so let's maybe not go full heavy on the spoilers.
I'm going to go a little heavy on the spoilers. You don't know. So Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, obviously Kevin Spacey. The film, if you haven't heard, this little summation. It's a thriller, tells the story of Detective David Mills, who partners with the retiring William Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, to track down serial killer Kevin Spacey, who uses the 7 deadly sins, deadly sins, as a motif for his murders. Now, clearly, spoiler alert, a little bit here. It's been 26 years. If you guys need to be a spoiler alert, here it is. So the bad guy wins with a twist ending where wrath, one of the 7 deadly sins, is the only remaining deadly sin to not have a murder tied to it. And it ends up coming from Pitt's character Mills when he shoots Spacey's John Doe for murdering his wife and having her head FedEx to him in the final scene of the movie. Now, the other sins for reference are gluttony, greed, envy, sloth, lust, and pride. Now, this is an exhausting movie, but one of my favorites. And it ends with an Ernest Hemingway quote spoken by Freeman as Somerset. The world is a fine place and worth fighting for. And Somerset concludes, I agree with the second part. Now, this last 4 years, I was asked by another friend of mine how I felt after 4 years. And the common word we both had was exhausted. And the kind of exhausted where I felt like that through a couple of movies. And 7 was one of them. I felt depleted at the end of 7. And it's funny to me thinking about it because that's pretty much how I feel at the end of 4 years. You know, and when it came to me finding that sort of parallel the question was, I mean, has any one man ever embodied all 7 deadly sins better than Donald Trump? and and then specifically the way that movie worked out with Wrath being portrayed at the end, how is it just couldn't it just a like bright red neon lights that January 6th was Wrath, right? That's where that sin played out. And it's part of what's left me looking at these movies and blaming Kevin Spacey entirely. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me Kevin Spacey's movies, or that we're just not solving the case here that Donald Trump is a huge Kevin Spacey fan, which makes sense on a lot of levels without getting into his own personal life. I mean, where do you guys land on that?
Well, I haven't seen all of House of Cards, but
You don't really have to.
just
You'll
watching
know when to stop.
the manipulations and everything that go on in that show. Yeah, okay. I might buy it if I was just fringe enough.
What about the last statement then? If do you guys feel like Somerset? Do you feel like the world
I
isn't
think
necessarily a fine place, but it is worth fighting for?
Well, I do think the world's a fine place, and I do think it's worth fighting for. And I think that there's a lot of people in our country right now who are tired. This last year, I think it was like the final, like the straw that broke the camel's back, with all the things that the American people have had to endure: the pandemic, fear, just being cut off from their normal lives, and then having to endure everything we've had to endure with riots, even though like the protests that were taking place with the Black Lives Matter were important. um, and then coming down to the end where someone claimed that the election was stolen, and forcing the nation into a precarious position.
Well, there's someone who claimed that has a name.
Yes, President Trump.
He claimed it. Yeah, he
Yeah.
he pushed that through.
Well, I didn't know if you
I
wanted me to
mean,
say Trump or if you wanted me to say Kevin Spacey.
well, it's your opinion. I'm the one who's blaming Kevin Spacey. Okay, because I mean the choice is either it was Kevin Spacey or some cheap knockoff Walmart Kaiser Soze wannabe. Is basically where I was going with it. I mean, look, this is my attempt at trying to. This is the way my brain tries to make sense of things sometimes when I feel like I can't find an answer. Right? I reach out into things that seem to fit the people that I'm trying to understand. And sometimes it's random. It just so happened that all these had Kevin Spacey to deal with. I almost had us debating who was more to blame, Tyler Durden or Kevin Spacey's character from American Beauty. Like, which one of those two characters influenced the snowball to get kicked off the hill and first and get bigger and bigger? I just I've been trying to understand how we got to where we were.
I don't know. That's gonna be something that's gonna take time and
Of
probably a
course.
lot of examination to truly understand how we got to where we were.
Yeah.
Um, and I think like understandably, like Mitch expressing his frustration earlier. I think there's a lot of people that feel that same way. We're just tired of everything that's going on. We want to move on, and we just want to see an end to things and see things change. We need leadership in this time, and the dearth of leadership we've had in the past 4 years, not just on the right but also on the left, has been really frustrating.
So we're coming up on an hour, and I want to just kind of take this moment to ask you all a question and kind of tell a story. So, my question is, have you ever felt proud to be an American? I want you to think about that for a moment, because we're all Americans just by sheer luck. I've never outwardly felt super proud to be an American except for one point in my life. whenever I hear someone like our friend Agent G that has, gone through the process to become an American citizen and they say it, hell yeah, that makes me feel good to hear. In September of 2016, I actually got the chance to go to Washington, D.C. It was a work trip to Virginia. A couple of us took a day to go over there and just, walk around and see the sights. I got to go see the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Memorial, a few war memorials. Got to go see Barry's house before he moved out. But to me, the best part of that was a tour of the Capitol building. And I remember it very well because our tour guide was hilarious. Next to me in the tour group were two people that were visiting from England, and she enjoyed getting them shit. She even found a way to bring up the War of 1812 and the burning of the White House just to point them out. They had a pretty good sense of humor about it, though. I got to spend this time going through the National Statuary Hall. I got to see the actual crypt. Oh God, what the heck is that? I saw, they don't let you go into the actual House room or the Senate chambers, but you get to see it a lot. I did enjoy walking by Paul Ryan's office at the time and kind of giving it the finger. But that was a really cool chance to kind of see how the sausage was made. Spending a day in the nation's capital was the one time I felt truly proud to be an American. We haven't even been around 300 years, and look at all we've been able to accomplish, for better or worse. We've done some pretty great things, but we've also got kind of a shitty past. Go ask a Native American. Well, the next time I saw the inside of the Capitol building was on TV on January 6th, when I saw people taking down American flags and hanging Trump flags in their space. One of the most oddly heartbreaking things I think I've seen in a very long time was a man who, obviously a Republican, I'm going to go ahead and make that guess, Party of Lincoln, walking through the Capitol building with a Confederate flag. That didn't even happen during the Civil War. Yet it happened now. I thought about the people on Flight 93 that gave their lives to prevent that plane from going into the Capitol building. The jihadists accomplished, in a more minor way, what Al-Qaeda couldn't. And I hadn't honestly felt that despondent since I watched the planes hit the Twin Towers on TV back when I was in high school. And what really blows me away is just the massive cognitive dissonance that some of these people, in my opinion, are displaying to reach this conclusion that, yes, it was a stolen election. Because, what's more likely to happen? A massive deep state conspiracy with massive voter fraud, or just the fact that when we have the most polarizing president in our nation's history in the White House, enough people said enough and voted him out? What's easier to believe?
Sure, absolutely. No, I agree with you on that.
I mean, the massive irony of this is it's people like that are afraid that, the government's going to take our guns away. But it's people doing that bullshit that's going to make it happen. Before Amazon took Parler down, there was a big, massive call to go back to DC on the 17th or somewhere close to the inauguration, but to go heavily armed.
Right.
First of all, I mean, again, look, if they pulled this off on a day when the building was basically empty, okay, whatever, they got in. I'm kind of amazed with that many important people I think the next 5 people in the secession chain were in the building when this happened.
Yes.
I am shocked that nobody caught lead as soon as they forced their way in.
Well, but didn't they? I mean, the Air Force. The Air Force.
I just figured there would have been more police, Secret Service. I just figured there would have been more armed people inside the Capitol building that day, considering who was there. That just kind of
those are all things we can't know and don't know, and those are all part of
yeah.
I mean, it's above our pay grade, but I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I'm just I think a lot of people out there don't have the time, or maybe, like you said, the education or comprehensive skills, and uh, just trying to get people to think. And people know movies; they can reference television shows, they can see that influence out there. I think that was really the aim at trying to get more of an allegorical approach to it, as opposed to going down when we did avoid most of it. So um, yeah.
If you want
Sorry,
to
I
go,
didn't
if
mean
you want to
to
go protest, go protest. That's fine. That is your right as an American.
Yeah, you should.
But when you break into the Capitol building, and some of your people have Molotov cocktails, some have what are those things called? Those zip tie flex cuffs,
Flex cuffs.
dressed out in cheap Walmart plate carriers. If it weren't for the actions of the people that were in that building, I truly believe we would have seen politicians get executed on television.
There's nothing that would convince me that we wouldn't have. There would have been,
That that that,
and
that
I don't know how many people would have supported that. Sure, but um, they moved him for a reason. Secret Service moved him for a
and I
reason.
don't know if it was Secret Service or the Capitol Police that fired that shot at that Air Force vet that died wrapped in a Trump flag,
It was Capitol Police.
but that was the sound of two realities colliding.
Well said. Anyone else want to piggyback on that moment before I hit my last question of the night? No.
No, I'm good.
See, aren't you proud? I said my thing, but I didn't go to the dark place.
Oh, you did good. You did great. Mike, you were saying?
Oh no, I'm good.
Also, can we say, holy shit, that was some serious white privilege?
Yeah.
Oh man, if that crowd had been a different color, it would have been a bloodbath.
I would say yeah,
Likely would have been a bloodbath.
that's something I was not confident or prepared to go over.
Mitch, maybe edit that out.
I just personally didn't have, and I don't know. I think we all agree on that. I don't think there's any disagreement on that from anyone, as far as I understand.
Seeing
So
all that on TV on January 6th has fully justified the fact that unless I'm going to and from work, I never leave the house unarmed these days. Too many goddamn crazy people in this world. God forbid they see my blue Adidas three-stripe track jacket, assume blue Democrat.
the, the Adidas track jacket is what gives it away.
It is blue.
It's fair.
Maybe I should buy a
So
red one to blend in.
I mean, this is fair. Everybody's boiled over with the stress of it. And my question, a serious question, and we'll end it after this, is, and please, you can answer shortly or in long form, but I mean, what do you guys think is two parts, or give you two perspectives? You can answer one. Just answer either for yourself or from the perspective of what do you think a reasonable American citizen's, um, like, what is our duty? What are our responsibilities in how we deal with other Americans we disagree with? And I'm not, now clearly, let's ice out. We're not talking about the people who uh, were there and committed these acts and were violent and aggressive. We're not talking about them. We're just talking about the whatever margin of group of people that politically are convinced that the election was a fraud, and they think that the president was robbed, but they're still Americans. What do we hold any responsibilities to the country, to ourselves? None. How are you going to handle it?
Well, you know, one of the things that I think about, you ask something like that, like what is our responsibility as an American citizen? Uh, the Pledge of Allegiance actually says that we need to be one nation. Let's forget the part under God, because I know some people are offended by that. But we must be one nation. The Declaration of Independence has a phrase in there which I love that says that we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Um, and so the way I read that is that, when the founding fathers got together and declared what this nation was all about, it wasn't one nation for me. It wasn't just about me and my needs, but it was also about respecting the other people who are my fellow Americans, and realizing that although I don't agree with them, you know, they have a voice. They have a right to say certain things, to an extent, to do certain things. Um, I think back to one of another quote that I remember from Senator John McCain, and I think it sums it up perfectly. And what he said on firing line one time with Margaret Hoover. He actually said, "Despite our differences, much more unites us than divides us. We are fellow Americans, and that's an association that means more to me than any other." And so
I didn't
that's
agree with a lot of that man's positions. I think he was batshit when he chose Palin as a running mate. But I respected the hell out of him, and I honestly think the soul of the Republican Party died with him.
Possibly. I always held him in high regard for uh, correcting that woman in the town hall meeting in 2008 about future.
Not only that, but there's videos of some sort of uh, charity dinner that at the time Senators Kane and Senator Obama were at, where they were just giving each other some good natured shit and having a good time. That would never happen now.
No, not in this climate for sure. But so, I mean, Brando, since you're already responding, I mean, what responsibilities do you take upon yourself?
Honestly, I think
I mean,
I'm
it's your family too. I think that's what I was saying before. Like, I think between the four of us, we all have multiple family members that we don't agree with politically that stresses us out. And I'm sure a lot of people are in that scenario and
oh yeah, I do
trying to.
get into some shouting matches with my father. That's a lot. That's a lot of fun. But he's not fully off the deep end. I mean, I told him that it seems crazy to me that you go online and you see stories about other people that are just cutting their parents off because of difference in political views. I think that's a little extreme, and maybe there were some underlying things there before that, and that would be the straw that broke the camel's back. I never cut my dad off for a difference in political opinion unless he goes full Q-tard, which I have told him, but he's not that great. He's just dyed in the wool, self-described ultra Republican. That yeah,
Tribal.
he is a less racist Clint Eastwood in the first half of Gran Torino.
Right. Yeah. I know a couple of those myself. How about you, Mitch? I know that this is a hot topic for you, man.
Brando had a question earlier that I don't think that we really got to address, but his question was, have you ever felt proud to be an American? And he mentioned how we're lucky to be Americans. And a lot of that in this, and apologies in advance for this long-winded and roundabout way of getting to what I'm saying right now.
Ooh, I love long-winded bits. Let's hear
So,
it.
no, this is Brevity Box. We're trying to avoid it.
This is
No,
a
I
special episode of Brevity Box. This
Yeah.
is brevity for Charlie.
Look, I have a real difficult time with pride in anything you didn't do when
Exactly.
people. Well, yeah, if you luck into something, or if you are in no charge and in no way responsible for the circumstances of your birth. You being proud is something that is reserved for your own accomplishments. You can be proud of maybe the accomplishments of your family. I'm proud of my father, the man he was. That being said, I'm lucky to have been born an American. I feel lucky about that. And I'm proud to continue to uphold and try to exemplify the values and the spirit of what that means and what that means to me. So going forward, my job is to meet people more than halfway. I will try harder than they're trying, but I'm not going to meet them all the way. And if they are unreasonable and unable to do their fair share, which I'm willing to do more than and meet them more than halfway, then at that point, that's where I sever my responsibility, because it's just not right to put it all on one side. And um Arvig said earlier today about a lack of leadership on both sides, and that's true. And I just want to find a place where we can we can have reasonable conversations, where we can have differences of opinion. And what happened to I do not I may not support what you believe. I may not support what you or agree with what you have to say, but I will fight to the death to defend your right to say it. Like that's what I'm talking about. That's what I want to return to. That's what I think that we should stand for. That's what I stand for. So where will I what's my responsibility? My responsibility is to myself, my family, my friends, the people that I love, and the values that we want to uphold as an American. I believe that that means differences of opinion. I believe that's what it's based on. We can't move forward without difficulty. We can't move forward without trial. We can't become better without differing of opinions. You want to get stronger, you go to the gym workout, right, Mike? You go, you get swole. You got to fight gravity. You got to fight the earth in order to get stronger. We have to fight a little bit in order to get better, but it can't be at the expense of sanity.
Or stability.
No.
Yeah, no, I agree
Why
with
don't
you.
we just let them have Florida? Have the
Well,
federal government subsidize the people that want to get the hell out of what we're going to call MAGA land now. Let all the red hats move in there. Build a wall on that border, and then we'll watch it go full Lord of the Flies in about 8 months.
yeah, maybe whatever
Look,
it
look,
was.
you sell pay-per-view feeds to this thing, and the national debt will not be a problem much longer.
Uh, God, it's sad, but it's true. Mitch, I think you spoke eloquently, and I think you
Very
got it right.
well said, Mitch.
It's really definitive. It should be what American means, what it means to be American. I'm gonna share with you, which Brando, you set it up perfectly, and I think this would be a good place to sort of wrap this episode up. But I'll answer my question as far as when have I been proud to be an American. I agree with you, Mitch. There's a lot of times where I don't think you can take pride for something that you had nothing to do with. Uh, when you made your reference to Graham, Agent G, becoming a citizen, and I think about that process, it hits that question hits me special today. Today, I attended my first funeral via Zoom,
Jesus.
and it was to pay my respects to well, I guess you could say Soviet born, but Russian born man by the name of Gennady Polyakov. And this man passed in St. Paul, Minnesota at the age of 64. He's lived in this country for several years, but I came to know this man through his children, who also Russian born. And when they were very young, he influenced them to be courageous, and that the best thing for their success was to come to America, to live with a host family, to find new friends, to pave their way for education. And I was lucky enough to know his children and become close with them. And, you know, I did what I felt was right. I didn't really look at it at the time as being particularly American, but those guys and I were friends, and they didn't have anywhere to go during holidays. And this is particularly his son, who I'm speaking of. And I would take him home for Christmas and Thanksgiving or whenever, because we were in college together. And many years later, I was invited to the wedding of his sister, who led me to another great friendship of mine and her husband, Chris Kincannon, and became close friends with this man who did not speak English particularly well, but we would always communicate. And I think everybody on here, and for people who don't know, I have a lot of experience as a remodeling contractor, and whenever I can go and jump in on a friend's project. And several times I went to St. Paul, Minnesota, and would just want to volunteer helping my friend Chris and his wife Anna, Gennadi's daughter, to work on their house, and her dad would be there with us. One of the guys working, drinking, and I can tell you it was I have a lot of special memories with this guy. But thinking of the life he built for himself and the way his kids were able to ascend to places of success and have families of their own, all of that stuff represents America. But I wouldn't ever take any claim to being proud of that as somehow my own. But I will tell you, one time it's 11:30, maybe midnight, and we are working on this house that Chris and Anna are just trying to get finished out so they can move in. And I am spray painting the ceilings with a airless sprayer, and Genna is up with us helping us out. And we just finished, and we're sort of wrapping up, and we had done, you know, uh, hundreds of feet of flooring, and we've done just a tremendous amount of work remodeling this house for them to move into. And I remember this man, in the best English he could muster, sort of looking at me and saying that he said, "I see strong American man." And then he started laughing. That's my answer. That's a moment where I felt proud. And it's sort of culminated because I know that in that moment, maybe I was just this one of those few Americans that he had access to represent all these things that the country had done to provide relationship stability, education, the promise of a secure future for the family. And I've had these thoughts for a long time about the man. We've had other memories that just really spoke to the kind of person that he was. But that's one of the things that made me feel proud to be an American and lucky that we were born here. The things that we miss that we provide for other people. You know, and in these hard times today, I needed to talk to you guys. I needed to get it all out, but you know, even in his absence and seeing his family, it was it was uttered by many of them that he was a happy man because of the family that he had around him and everything that had come from what he started in another country across the world and ended up here. And I think that spoke to what was great about us. And I think it's a good way to get people to think. And hopefully the whole show got them to think. But that's my answer.
It's a good answer. Thank you for sharing that. Sorry to hear about your loss.
I was less my loss, man, but I was proud to know him, and I'm proud to know him. Anyway,
I want to add one more. I want to add a very
yeah,
light.
yeah,
I want to add a lighthearted
that
thing.
up. Lighten that up, please. All the helium.
All right, we're going to add a lighthearted thing to this. If anybody's thinking about going to visit DC in the future, just like going to see the nation's capital, for a sane reason.
So
This
not
is something
storming
I
it.
learned that I want to share with you. That place gets fucking sketchy after dark, so get on the subway and get the hell out when the sun starts going down.
I think listen to any of Dave Chappelle's first few comedy specials, and he'll tell you all about DC.
Dude, I was standing on the corner across from the Eisenhower building. I still didn't feel comfortable. I'm glad there were like 10 of us. Sketchy as fuck. Anyways, that being said.
That being said, any parting words from anybody for the end of the show? Mike, Mitch?
I think I've I pretty much said my piece. What about the rest of you guys?
Well, let's just look to the future and hope for a better day.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. I mean, I'm ready for sure. But I thought, with as much as everything's going on, I wanted to capture the moment as best as I could. we originally intended to have Larissa join us. Larissa is just barely getting over the hump. She has been stricken with COVID-19, and it had hit her pretty hard. So we wish you a speedy recovery, Larissa, if you're listening. And when
Larissa got Lorona. Very sad.
she did get the Rona. But I think that's all we've got, guys. Thanks for humoring me and going through. I don't know how well it'll come off, but I hope it comes off well. I think Mitch will know before the rest of us do. I want to take a moment and
His editing power.
thank my co-host Brando and Mitch. Thank you for joining us, and Mike as well. I appreciate you, Mike. I couldn't have really wanted your. I knew you'd come in with some,
You got to get Mike on here more often.
I 100% think we need to get Mike here more often. But we thank you for listening to Brevity Box, and if you like our content, please like and subscribe. Leave those reviews. You can find a variety of entertainment and shows content on ruminationsradionetwork.com. We hope that you'll take a peek and look and see what we have to offer. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Be excellent to each other.